the moment my son-in-law called me confused. I knew he'd been waiting years to say something worse. And I knew this time, he wasn't just insulting me. He was testing me. I swear the room actually paused when he said it. The TV hummed behind us, the casserole steam curled like a ghost between us, and every face at that dinner table flicked toward me, waiting to see if the old woman would crumble. But I didn't. Not this time. Confused? I repeated, keeping my voice steady. I had learned decades ago that quiet was more terrifying than yelling. Elliot, a 40-year-old man who still wore cologne like a teenage boy, leaned back in his chair smirking. "Oh, come on, Linda. You mixed up the simple directions. It's not a big deal." He said it like I had wandered into traffic. My daughter, Jenna, didn't even look at me. She stared into her wine like maybe she'd drown in it before having to take my side. That hurt more than the insult. Everyone went back to eating, pretending nothing happened. But I heard the truth under their silverware clinks. They'd been waiting for this moment. Waiting for the crack. Waiting for proof that I was fading. I set my fork down, folding my napkin carefully. The kind of careful that meant danger. "I'm going home," I said. Jenna finally looked up. "Mom, don't be dramatic." "Dramatic? Honey, you have no idea." Elliot gave a lazy shrug, like he'd already won something. "Yeah, relax. We're just joking. You know, older folks get overwhelmed." There it was. The word he really wanted. Older. Funny thing was, I'd spent 30 years as a hospital records supervisor, handling more paperwork than he could spell. But sure, I was confused. I stood. "Thank you for dinner." "Mom." Jenna rose halfway, but her voice lacked any real intention. She wasn't trying to stop me. She was trying to save the optics. I didn't turn back. Not when I reached the door. Not when I stepped outside. Not even when I sat in my car and put my hands on the wheel. Because the moment I walked out of that house, something happened inside me. Sharp, clean, absolute. I didn't feel old. I felt awake. And what they didn't know, what not a single one of them suspected, was that earlier that afternoon, I had already met with a lawyer. Not because of anything they said tonight. No. I met with him because I'd seen this coming long before they did. And now I had a decision to make. A big one. One that would change everything. And if they thought tonight was the worst surprise I'd give them, they had no idea what was coming next. I didn't plan on crying when I got home. But I also didn't plan on finding evidence that Elliot had been digging into my personal accounts. My house greeted me the same way it always did. Quiet, steady, loyal in a way the people inside that dinner room hadn't been in years. I locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and flicked on the kitchen light. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the whole place. Funny, isn't it? You spend your whole life raising a family, and eventually the only thing that notices your home is a poorly functioning GE fridge from 1998. I made tea out of instinct, not desire. Something to hold. Something to steady me. My eyes landed on the stack of mail I'd left on the counter earlier. Harmless stuff, grocery ads, a magazine I didn't remember subscribing to, and one envelope that looked off. No return address. Just a barcode and my name printed in cold, sterile ink. I opened it slowly, and then the floor under me seemed to shift. Request for account access confirmation. We attempted to verify the new authorized user added to your savings account. Elliot Marsh. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. If anything, everything inside me went colder, clearer. Elliot. Trying to slide himself onto my accounts before I was even in the ground. I should have been shocked. I wasn't. If anything, the insult at dinner suddenly felt like a warm-up. A test run. A poke to see if I'd snap or stay soft enough to control. I sat down, reading the letter again and again until the words bled into one loud truth. They weren't waiting for me to fade. They were working on making it easier when I did. I put the letter beside the folder I'd brought home from the lawyer's office earlier. Documents about trust restructuring, property control, medical power of attorney, and the draft of a will no one but me knew existed. The timing wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. "Mom, Elliot said you left crying. We're worried. Please don't take what he said personally. You know he jokes a lot." Jokes. Trying to get access to my savings wasn't a joke. I typed back slowly. I'm fine. We'll talk later. But I knew something they didn't. We wouldn't be talking later. Not in the way they expected. Not after tonight. Not after the letter. Not after the truth I could no longer unsee. I closed the folder, turned off the kitchen light, and stood in the dark for a long moment, letting my eyes adjust, letting my heart settle, letting the new version of myself step forward. The version they had created. The version they would soon regret. Because tomorrow morning, I was going to make a phone call that would flip their entire world upside down. I woke up the next morning with a feeling I hadn't had in years, certainty. And certainty is dangerous in the hands of a woman everyone thinks is slipping. The sun wasn't even up yet when I sat at my kitchen table, the letter from the bank in one hand and my coffee in the other. I didn't scroll my phone. I didn't turn on the news. I didn't distract myself. I just sat there, thinking, connecting dots I'd been avoiding for years. Elliot's little insult last night? That wasn't random. That was strategy. His jokes had been getting bolder all year. Little comments about my memory, about me slowing down, about my house needing younger maintenance. The man wasn't subtle. He was arrogant. Arrogance makes people sloppy. Good for me. Bad for him. At 8:14 a.m. exactly, I dialed the number for my attorney, Mr. Harlan Drake. A man in his early 50s with a gruff voice, but eyes sharp enough to cut stone. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Alden, he said. I figured I'd hear from you this week. I didn't bother with small talk. I want to finalize everything. Not next month. Not soon. Today. He paused long enough for the weight of my words to settle. You're sure? He tried to get access to my bank account. That was all I needed to say. His voice dropped. All right. Come in at noon. We'll finalize every detail. I hung up, feeling a strange steadiness in my chest. Not anger, not fear, something colder. Something cleaner. Resolve. By the time noon rolled around, I was dressed, hair brushed, paperwork neatly stacked in my oversized purse. The same purse Jenna used to joke was grandma survival gear. Funny how the things they mocked ended up saving me. Mr. Drake's office was quiet, warm, lined with old books and framed certificates. He motioned me to sit. Let's begin, he said. For the next hour, we went through everything. Heavy checkmark my house. Heavy checkmark my retirement accounts. Heavy checkmark my savings. Heavy checkmark my medical directives. Heavy checkmark in the most important part, control. I wasn't leaving anything ambiguous. Ambiguity is how people like Elliot slip through cracks. Finally, Mr. Drake slid the final document across the desk. The trust protects everything. Only one person will have authority after you're gone, or if you are ever medically unable to speak for yourself. No one else can override it, challenge it, or touch it. I signed, my hand steady as stone. And the beneficiary, he asked. I didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. My grandson, Lucas. Not Jenna. Not Elliot. Not anyone who treated me like an inconvenience. Lucas. The only one who still visited without needing something. The only one who didn't talk at me. The only one who valued me. When the last signature dried, Mr. Drake clasped his hands. You know this decision will cause waves. I smiled. They've been drowning me for years. It's their turn to learn how to swim. As I walked out of that office, the cold November wind whipped across my face, but it felt good. Like cleansing. Like warning. I wasn't confused. I wasn't fading. I wasn't fragile. I was prepared. And they had no idea what kind of storm was coming. Because the moment I got home, I found someone waiting on my porch. Someone who wasn't supposed to know anything yet. The last person I expected to see on my porch that afternoon was my grandson. And the first thing he said was, Grandma, something's wrong. Lucas wasn't the type to show up unannounced. He always texted first, always asked if I needed anything. So when I pulled into my driveway and found him pacing on the porch, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, I knew something was off. He looked up the second he heard my car door close. Grandma, he said, moving quickly toward me. I'm glad you're home. Mom's been freaking out. She said you stormed out yesterday. Stormed out? Funny. All I did was leave. I unlocked the door and motioned him inside. What's really going on, Lucas? He hesitated. The kind of hesitation that meant he was protecting me from something ugly. Finally, he exhaled. Okay, do not get upset, but I heard Mom and Elliot talking this morning. I set my purse down, calm on the outside, bracing on the inside. What did they say? He sat at the table, fingers drumming nervously. Elliot said you're slipping. That you're starting to lose track of things. He said it's better if they step in before things get messy. Ah, there it was. The narrative they were building. When did you hear this? I asked. Before school. They didn't know I was in the hallway. He looked up at me, jaw tight, eyes burning with the anger he inherited from my side of the family. Quiet anger, steady anger. Grandma, he's planning something. He said he'll take care of it soon. I don't know what that means, but he stopped, swallowing hard. It scared me. I reached across the table, placing my hand over his. Thank you for telling me. He nodded, but he didn't relax. Are you okay? Because he makes it sound like you need help. And you don't. I know you don't. I forced a small smile. I'm more than okay. He didn't know I'd just finalized papers that morning. He didn't know I'd already cut off the escape routes Elliot thought he had. He didn't know I'd locked everything down tight enough that even a hurricane couldn't pry it open. But he would soon. Lucas, I said gently, you don't need to worry about me. I do, he said immediately. Because you're the only one who's ever been there for me, and I won't let them walk all over you. That hit me in a place I hadn't felt in a long time. Respect. Loyalty. Not from obligation, but from love. I squeezed his hand. Come by tomorrow. There are things I want to talk to you about. His eyes softened. Okay. I will. He hugged me before leaving. A real hug, not the half-shoulder tap Jenna had reduced herself to. When he drove off, I stood on the porch a moment longer, the wind biting at my cheeks. Elliot thought he was clever, spinning a story before I could defend myself. But I already knew the truth. People who whisper lies about you behind your back are terrified of what you might say when you finally speak. And I was done being quiet. I walked back inside, shut the door, and locked it, twice. Because whatever Elliot was planning, I had just taken the first step in unraveling it. But I didn't expect who would show up at my door next, and what they'd accuse me of. The knock on my door wasn't polite. It was the kind of knock people use when they're already angry, and already convinced you're guilty. It was barely 20 minutes after Lucas left when the pounding started. 3 sharp thuds. A pause. Another 3. No one knocks like that unless they're trying to intimidate you. I opened the door just enough to see who it was. Jenna. And the look on her face told me she didn't come to check on my feelings. She pushed her way inside before I could even speak, her eyes flashing with something between embarrassment and rage. Mom, she snapped. What did you tell Lucas? So that was it. I closed the door calmly. I didn't tell him anything. She let out an angry breath. He came home saying Elliot is trying to take over your life. Do you have any idea how crazy that makes us look? Crazy. This was about appearances. Not truth. Not integrity. Not loyalty. How about, I said slowly, we talk about the bank letter I received? Her expression changed, only for a split second. But I saw it. Recognition. Guilt. Fear. Then she covered it with attitude. Elliot explained that. It was an accident. A technical error. I almost laughed. Interesting accident. It happened from his home IP address. She froze again, then tried to recover. Mom, you're blowing this out of proportion. Of course. That was always their line when they were caught. Why didn't he tell me himself? I asked. She crossed her arms. Because every time he tries to have a conversation with you, you get defensive. No. I correctajanly. I get defensive when he lies. There's a difference. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was delivering a threat wrapped in concern. You're making things difficult. Elliot is trying to help. We're trying to help. There it was, the part they always left unsaid suddenly slipping out. Help. The kind of help that requires access, control, signatures, ownership. I stared at her. letting the silence settle heavily between us. Jenna, I said, have you ever once asked me what I want? She blinked. What? What I want? I repeated. Not what you assume I need. Not what Elliot decides for me. What I actually want. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She would have stood there all day if she thought silence could win. But silence had belonged to me for too long. So I kept going. Last night wasn't an accident, I said. Elliot doesn't joke. He tests boundaries. And you let him. Her jaw tightened. He cares about you. No, I said firmly. He cares about what I have. She sucked in a breath like I'd slapped her. But she didn't deny it. She couldn't. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling. You're risking everything. You're pushing us away. No, I said softly. I'm finally stepping out of the corner you pushed me into. Her eyes filled, not with sadness, but with panic. Panic because control was slipping from her hands. Please, she said. Don't do anything drastic. Let us manage things. Let us take care of your estate properly. Ah, there it was. The truth behind every word. Estate. Not love. Not safety. Not family. Estate. I stepped aside, pointing toward the door. We're done talking for today. She didn't move at first. Her eyes scanned my face, searching for weakness, for hesitation, for the old version of me, the version she could guilt or pressure. She didn't find her. Finally, she whispered, "You're making a mistake." "No," I said as I opened the door fully. "I'm correcting one." She stepped out, furious and shaken, and walked quickly to her car. She didn't look back. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it for a moment, exhaling slowly. The truth was out. The lines were drawn. The masks were falling. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid of what they'd do next. I felt ready. But readiness didn't prepare me for the voicemail Elliot left that night. One that revealed just how far he was willing to go. I knew Elliot was capable of being smug, manipulative, even cruel. But I didn't know he was bold enough to leave a voicemail threatening my sanity. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner, soup and toast, though I barely tasted any of it. My mind was replaying the way Jenna's face twisted, the panic behind her voice, the cracks in her confidence. They were scared. Good. They should be. But fear makes desperate people reckless. Right around 9:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. No call, just the message. Elliot. I didn't listen right away. I sat on the sofa staring at the phone like it had teeth. Then I pressed play. His voice came through low, slow, dripping with fake concern. "Linda, hey, it's Elliot. I'm just checking in. Jenna's worried about you and frankly so am I." A pause. Calculated. Manipulative. "You've been acting unusual lately. Confused. Forgetful. Emotional. I know you think everything is fine, but we all see the decline." Decline. My spine stiffened. He kept going. "I talked to a friend of mine. He works in elder care, and he said these are early signs. So before anything gets worse, we need to set up a medical evaluation. It's for your own protection." Another pause. "And if you refuse, well, there are legal avenues we can take to keep you safe. None of us want it to get that far." That was not concern. That was a threat. A slow, deliberate, well-rehearsed threat. The message ended with a cheery fake soft. "Sleep well." I sat there, phone in hand, pulse steady, too steady. The kind of steadiness that comes right before something inside you snaps into place. So that was the plan. They weren't just trying to access my money. They weren't just insulting me. They were preparing a case. Trying to paint me as incompetent. Trying to put legal pressure on me. Trying to box me into guardianship. Trying to take everything. They thought they were brilliant strategists. But they forgot one crucial thing. I've seen more hospital paperwork, medical records, and legal manipulations in my career than Elliot could understand if he studied for 10 years. And if he wanted a war of documentation, he had picked the wrong old woman. I saved the voicemail in 3 places. Emailed a copy to myself. Uploaded another to a cloud folder. And forwarded the recording straight to my attorney with 3 words. "We escalate now." For the first time all day, I smiled. Not because I was amused, but because I finally understood the enemy. He wasn't clever. He was sloppy. He left evidence. And he'd just threatened a woman who had already locked her estate tighter than a military vault. Let him try. Let him file his accusations. Let him challenge my competence. I would crush them with the truth. I turned off the lights and went to bed early. Not out of exhaustion, but out of something far more powerful. Preparation. Because tomorrow, the real game would begin. And the next morning, that game began with a phone call from Adult Protective Services. Someone had reported me. When the caller said they were from Adult Protective Services, my stomach didn't drop, my anger did. It sank low, cold, and ready. Someone had declared war. The phone rang at 8:03 a.m. sharp. Not a second earlier. Not a second later. Government agencies don't call early unless it's intentional. Mrs. Linda Alden? A woman said, voice firm but practiced. This is Dana Stokes with Adult Protective Services. We received a report concerning your cognitive state and living conditions. There it was. Exactly the move Elliot would make. I inhaled slowly, quietly letting her talk. We were informed that you may be experiencing memory issues, confusion, difficulty managing finances, and potential neglect of your personal safety. If she had been standing in my kitchen, she would have seen how calmly I placed my coffee down. Who filed the report? I asked. I'm not at liberty to say, she replied automatically. But she didn't need to. I already knew. The only person sloppy enough to weaponize a government agency, while leaving fingerprints all over his own mess? Elliot. I'd like to schedule a home visit, Dana continued. Just to check in and make sure everything is okay. I leaned back in my chair, letting the sunlight hit my face. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't shaking. I was ready. Today. I asked. A mild pause. If that's possible. Of course it was possible. He wanted speed. Urgency. A quick evaluation before I could defend myself. Sure, I said. 11 o'clock. She sounded almost relieved. Thank you, Mrs. Alden. We'll see you soon. After I hung up, I didn't waste a second. I forwarded the call summary to my attorney. Yes, I keep written notes. Confused people don't do that. Mr. Drake called immediately. They moved fast, he growled. Faster than I expected. They think I'm defenseless, I said. You want me present for the visit? I shook my head, even though he couldn't see. No. If I have a lawyer here, it makes me look like I'm hiding something. He paused. Brilliant. Brilliant? No. Just experienced. While waiting, I cleaned the house, not out of nerves, but because I wanted everything spotless. Ordered. Unmistakable. Medications arranged alphabetically. Bills paid and printed. Calendar filled with appointments and reminders. Insurance papers organized. Legal documents ready in a neat, labeled folder. I even wiped the counters twice. Not because I needed to, because I knew they'd be looking for any hint of chaos. At exactly 11 a.m., a white sedan pulled into my driveway. A woman in a navy blazer stepped out, clipboard in hand. She smiled, polite but observant. Mrs. Alden? Thank you for having me. I welcomed her in, leading her through the house at a measured pace, answering questions clearly, directly, with the sharpness of someone who had spent decades managing medical files and patient histories. She checked everything. Opened cabinets. Reviewed my medication schedule. Asked me dates, names, procedures, monthly expenses. I answered every question without hesitation. Finally, she said, I'll be honest, Mrs. Alden. You seem perfectly capable. Thank you, I replied. I am. But, she continued gently, someone was very concerned. They made it sound urgent. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. Worried people don't file anonymous reports, I said. Manipulative ones do. She didn't respond, but she didn't have to. Her face said everything. I'll file my report this afternoon, she said as she stepped outside. You'll receive a copy once it's finalized. Thank you for your time. She left. I watched her car disappear down the street. And then I whispered to myself, your move, Elliot. But before I could even sit down, I heard tires screech outside. Someone else had shown up, furious, uninvited, and ready to explode. Asterisk asterisk. Elliot didn't knock. He didn't call. He slammed out of his car so fast the door bounced back and nearly hit him, because the APS visit terrified him. And terrified people get dangerous. I watched him march up my walkway like a man heading into a courtroom he wasn't prepared for. His face was red, blotchy red, the kind that only happens when someone's plans start falling apart. He didn't even wait for me to open the door fully before he shoved his way inside. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. I shut the door gently behind him, calm in a way that clearly made him angrier. "Hello to you too, Elliot." "No, don't play this polite act with me," he snapped, pacing the living room like a cornered animal. "APS showed up at your house. They called Jenna at work. Do you know how that makes us look?" Ah. There it was. The same thing Jenna feared. Image. Reputation. Control. Not 1 ounce of genuine concern. I folded my arms. "I didn't file the report." He stopped pacing. "Don't lie." "I don't need to lie." A beat. "But you do." His jaw tightened. "I was trying to help you. You were trying to declare me incompetent." He swallowed hard, because the truth hit him like a slap. But instead of backing down, he stepped closer. "You're losing it, Linda. You're paranoid. You're..." I held up a hand. He froze. "Before you say another word, Elliot," I said quietly, "remember your voicemail from last night." His eyes widened barely, but I caught it. "You recorded me," he hissed. "No," I said. "You recorded yourself." He looked like he wanted to lunge, or scream, or run. He couldn't decide. His brain flickered with panic, confusion, anger, and fear. Real fear. "You don't know what you're doing," he finally spat. "You're making this worse. You made this worse the moment you tried to access my accounts," I said. His throat bobbed. "That was..." "Don't," I warned. "Don't insult both of us by lying again." He took a step back, rubbing his forehead like this was somehow exhausting for him. "They're going to investigate all of us now," he said. "Our finances. Our home. They might even talk to the neighbors. Do you want that?" I looked him dead in the eyes. Yes. His mouth fell open, because he finally understood. I wasn't scared of the investigation. He was. "You're insane," he whispered. "No," I said. "I'm informed. I'm prepared. And I'm done." He stood there, staring at me like he was looking at a stranger. Like he finally realized the woman he thought was soft, confused, and easy to manipulate had sharper edges than he'd ever seen. "You think you can win this?" he asked, voice low and shaking. "Yes," I said simply. "Because I already had." He stormed toward the door, throwing one last threat over his shoulder. "You just made a very big mistake, Linda." I smiled. "So did you, Elliot. You underestimated me." He froze, just long enough to absorb the words, then slammed the door behind him so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. The house went silent. No panique. No checking. Just clarity. Let him rage. Let him panic. Let him unravel. I wasn't the one losing control. He was. And the next person to walk into my home wasn't angry. He was terrified. Lucas showed up trembling, holding something he'd overheard that changed everything. Lucas didn't knock. He stumbled inside pale and shaking, like he'd seen something he wasn't supposed to survive. And the words he gasped out made my blood turn to ice. He closed the door behind him with trembling hands, chest rising too fast, eyes wide in a way that told me this wasn't teenage dramatics. This was fear. Real raw fear. "Lucas," I said, stepping toward him. "What happened?" He swallowed hard, voice cracking. "Grandma. I heard Mom and Elliot talking again. And this time it wasn't just about you." I guided him to the kitchen table, my palm on his shoulder, steadying him. "Take a breath," I said gently. "Tell me what you heard." He nodded, pressing a hand to his forehead like he was trying to stop the memory from replaying. "I came home early. They didn't know I was there. They were in the living room, arguing. Mom was crying, really crying. And he kept telling her that everything would work out once you were declared unfit." Declared unfit. My jaw clenched. But Lucas wasn't done. He said they can't afford to wait anymore. That if APS didn't find anything, he'd push harder. Grandma, what does that even mean? My breath slowed. Deep. Controlled. Because anger, true cold anger, needs discipline to be useful. Did you hear anything else? I asked. He nodded again, eyes glassy and full of a hurt he didn't know how to handle. He said once they got control of everything, he'd finally be able to take care of the debt. Mom asked him what would happen if you fought it. And he told her. Lucas swallowed hard, voice barely a whisper. He told her not to worry. That old people break easily. That was when something inside me, something old and quiet and buried, finally snapped. Not the kind of snap you hear. The kind that solidifies. I reached out, taking Lucas's hand. You did the right thing telling me. He looked at me desperately. Grandma, I don't want anything from you. I don't care about money. I can't let them hurt you. I squeezed his hand, firm and steady. They won't. I promise you. His voice dropped. Mom didn't sound like she wanted this. She sounded scared. That made my chest tighten. Not sympathy, just truth. Jenna wasn't a villain. She was a coward. And cowards often let the wrong people steer their lives. Lucas, I said. Listen to me very carefully. He looked up. You are not responsible for their choices. You are only responsible for your own integrity. And you've shown more courage than both of them combined. He blinked fast, trying not to cry. What do we do now? We don't panic, I said. We plan. He nodded slowly, breathing evening out. Come back tomorrow after school, I told him. There's something I want you to have. His brows knit. What is it? You'll see, I said, standing. But it's important. And it will protect you, no matter what happens next. His eyes widened. Protect me? Yes, I said softly. Because when people get desperate, they target more than one person. A chill ran through him, and he nodded. As I walked him to the door, he hugged me tight, tighter than he had before. I held him, feeling that protective fire burn hotter, sharper. Not for me. For him. No one was going to drag him into their mess. Not while I was alive. Not even after. He stepped outside, glancing back with worried eyes. Grandma, just promise me you'll be careful. I gave him a small, steady smile. I'm done being careful, sweetheart. I'm being strategic. He nodded and left, but the fear on his face lingered in my home long after he was gone. And I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't just about my estate anymore. This was about survival. And that night, as rain hammered my windows, I discovered something in my mailbox. Something that proved Elliot had already taken his next step. ***. The envelope in my mailbox wasn't wet from the rain, because someone had put it there moments before I opened the door. And the document inside proved Elliot had crossed a line he could never come back from. The storm outside was brutal. Wind slamming against the siding. Rain hitting the windows so hard the glass shivered. I wasn't expecting anything, but something pulled me toward the front door. A tug in my chest. A warning. When I opened the door, the rain nearly blew inside, misting the entryway. And there, sitting dead center in my mailbox, was a single manila envelope. No address. No stamp. Hand-delivered. I grabbed it, heart steady but alert, and shut the door behind me. The envelope felt light, too light. But inside I could feel paper thick enough to matter. I slid it open. And my breath stilled. Power of attorney request, PRE filed petition. Petitioner, Elliot Marsh. Claim, cognitive decline, financial vulnerability. Intended transfer of authority, Jenna Marsh and Elliot Marsh jointly. Filed. Filed with the county court. Not submitted yet, but prepared, signed, notarized. Ready. He was planning to push it through the moment APS didn't give him what he wanted. Maybe even before. And the worst part? Jenna's signature was on the bottom. I sat down slowly, the document trembling just slightly between my fingers, but not from fear. From fury. A fury so cold it felt like ice in my veins. I read through the petition line by line, and with each sentence, my jaw clenched tighter. Erratic emotional behavior. Increasing forgetfulness. neglected household upkeep, poor decision-making regarding finances, inability to manage daily tasks. There wasn't a single truth in it. Not one. Just Elliot's imagination typed neatly on county letterhead. At the bottom, a note. Submitted upon evidence and witness confirmation. Evidence. Witness. Elliot would twist everything. Every forgotten sticky note. Every time I misplaced my glasses. Every pause in conversation. Every normal human moment. He thought he could paint me as incompetent with a few carefully crafted lies. He thought he could corner me before I had time to react. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the trust papers I'd signed earlier were already active, already filed, already sealed. Even if he got guardianship, the estate wouldn't be his to touch. But this wasn't about winning anymore. This was about principle. This was about respect, dignity, autonomy. He wanted a war? He wanted to drag me into court? He wanted to declare me unfit? Fine. Let him try. I placed the petition next to the APS report folder, then reached for my phone. I typed a message to my attorney. Found pre-filed POA petition in mailbox. He's accelerating. We move now. No panique. Just strategy. I was done waiting for Elliot's next move. I was done giving him space. I was done letting him circle me like some aging prey. The next action belonged to me, and it would be the one that ended this. But before I could type anything else, my phone buzzed again. A text. From Jenna. Mom, we need to talk. Tonight. Please. It's urgent. Urgent. That word again. Except this time, something felt different. The tone. The punctuation. The way she didn't defend Elliot. For the first time in weeks, her message didn't sound manipulative. It sounded terrified. I stared at the screen, breathing slow and even. Jenna wanted to talk. But why now? Why after signing the petition? Why after backing Elliot's lies? Unless something had finally snapped in her too. And when Jenna showed up at my doorstep shaking in the storm, the truth she confessed was darker than anything I ever imagined. Jenna didn't knock. She didn't call my name. She just stood there in the rain, soaked to the bone, eyes swollen with the kind of guilt that ruins people. And the first thing she whispered was, "Mom." I didn't know what he was planning. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Not the polished, distant daughter I'd grown used to, but the girl I raised. Scared. Ashamed. Finally seeing the monster she'd married. I stepped aside, letting her in. Water dripped from her hair onto the hardwood floor, but I didn't care. She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking, not from the cold, but from something deeper. "Sit," I said softly. She did, collapsing into the kitchen chair like gravity finally caught up with her. For a moment she couldn't speak. Her breathing hitched, broken. Her fingers twisted the hem of her wet sweater. Finally, "Mom, I'm so sorry." I didn't say anything. I waited. The truth needed space. She wiped her face with trembling hands. "I saw the petition tonight. The one Elliot filed. And I didn't know it said that. I didn't know he wrote those things about you." "You signed it," I said quietly. She flinched. "He told me it was a backup plan. He told me it was just in case. He said it was to protect the family." A breath. A sobi. He lied to me. My heart didn't break, because it had already broken years ago watching her become a shadow of herself. But something inside shifted. Softer. Older. Knowing. "Jenna," I said, "why are you really here?" She looked at me, tears streaking down her face. "Because he was on the phone tonight," she whispered. "Talking to someone. And I heard him say he wasn't going to wait for APS. That he'd force your hand, another way if he had to." Her voice cracked. "Mom, he was talking about an incident. Something that would make you look unstable. Something public." My blood went cold, not from fear. From fury so sharp it felt like lightning. "What kind of incident?" I asked. She shook her head violently. "I don't know. But he said, people believe what they see. He said it doesn't take much for an older woman to look confused in public." Her voice shrank. "Mom, I think he was planning to stage something." There it was. The escalation. The desperation. the true face of his panic. I leaned forward. Jenna, do you know where he is now? Yes, she said. He's at home. He thinks I'm still there. I left when he started yelling about APS not doing their job. The pieces were falling into place faster now. I reached for the folder containing the trust documents, the APS notes, the voicemail transcript, and the petition he thought was secret. I placed them gently in front of her. She stared at the stack, as if she were staring at the wreckage of her own life. Mom. Her voice was barely a whisper. How did it get this bad? Because, I said softly, you trusted the wrong man, and he assumed I was the wrong woman. She broke again, shoulders shaking. I moved closer, placing a hand on her back. For the first time in years, she leaned into me, really leaned. Not as a mother, not as a child, as two women caught in the same storm. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I needed you to know I'm not choosing him anymore. I nodded once. Good. Because what I said next changed everything. Jenna. I already protected everything. He can't touch my estate. And he can't touch you or Lucas either. She lifted her head, confused. What do you mean? The trust is sealed. Irrevocable. Independent. Legal. Even a court can't override it. And you, I placed a hand over hers, are not bound to Elliot's mistakes. Tears spilled again, but this time, there was relief in them. For the first time, she looked like someone returning to herself. I want to help you, she said. I want to fix what I broke. You will, I said. Tomorrow we go to my attorney. Together. We bring the petition. We report the threat. We show them everything. And Elliot, she whispered. My voice was calm. Steady. Final. Elliot will destroy himself. We don't need to lift a finger. She nodded, exhaling shakily. Outside, the storm finally quieted. Inside, the storm finally shifted. Not gone. Not forgotten. But turning. For the first time. In my favor. As I walked Jenna to the guest room, she turned back one last time. Mom, are you scared? I smiled faintly. No. He should be. And he was. He just didn't know it yet. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for stay in touch with me.